Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of It's All Been Done Before. My name is Pravda. My company is Suit Cafe, and welcome everybody to another episode of this podcast. And what do I usually talk about on this podcast? Well, it started off with having guests on the podcast where I would meet somebody in person or on Instagram or on TikTok, and then I would invite them on the podcast to talk about their business. Now, I'm in the clothing business, as most of you may know. Excuse me, most of you may know I'm in the clothing business from this podcast or from my website or from my YouTube channel, whatever it might be. And the podcast is not about the clothing business necessarily. It's about any business that anybody may be in, or they might have started it, or they might have taken one over. And what does it mean that it's all been done before? Well, basically every business has already been done. I mean, are there any new ideas out there? I mean, even space exploration has been done by NASA, and now Elon Musk is doing it, but he's doing it a little differently. So it's working out for him extremely well, as everybody knows. So that's basically the crux of what this podcast is about. And then it sort of morphed into something else. I would do live TikToks while I was walking around Manhattan, having conversations with some people that were on the live. And then I took the audio from that and I made that into the podcast because it was like real time, interesting, raw and live with the city, the noise of the city streets behind in the background and the traffic and the horns and the sirens and whatever else is going on in Manhattan at that particular moment. So, that was interesting also. And now it's changed again into this. This is me talking about a particular subject, which I'm going to tell you about right now. And again, I like to keep it based on what's happening in menswear and the clothing business, maybe some, business things in general. But what's going on right now in menswear is the Pitti Uomo. Now, for those of you who don't know what the Pitti Uomo is, I think it started on the 17th, which was yesterday, probably was the first day. Yes, yesterday was the first day, Tuesday, and it probably ends on Friday, which is usually a half a day. The Pitti Uomo is the premier menswear clothing show in the world. So if you have a store, no matter where you're located on the planet Earth, you could get an invite to the Pitti Uomo, but usually a manufacturer who is attending as an exhibitor at Pitti needs to invite you, and you go to Pitti, you get a badge. It's like an expo, and you could get in and you can see different booths and different companies that make everything for men. It's all about menswear, whether it's belts or there's some shoes, but there's a separate show for shoes in Milan called MyCam. That's all shoes there. So this is really clothing, some accessories, but not too many, but it's really based on clothing, sportswear, knitwear, outerwear. That's, and of course, tailored garments too, suits, jackets, overcoats, shirts from all different companies throughout Italy. Now, some of those companies, you may know the names of them because they have representation in the United States. And some of those companies, you don't know the name because they really maybe can't afford to come to the States, or they don't want to take the trip to bring representatives from their factory to the U.S. And you have to pay to get to an exhibition in the U.S., like the one that's in New York, or there's one in Chicago called the Chicago Collective became a big one. New York was the big one, but for whatever reason, New York lost it to Chicago. I don't know why that is. All the Italian companies came to New York. They used to have a special section for all the Italians, the high-end, luxury high-end menswear at the New York Collective, and for whatever happened, it changed to Chicago. Now Chicago is the big show, and I'm in New York, and I don't know why New York lost it. Anybody know why? I don't know why they lost it, but they should get it back. I think it should be in New York. Anyway, so Pitti Uomo, where is it? In Italy, in Firenze, in Florence, Italy. Every year it's in Florence, Italy. And it's a great show. I love going to that show. I've been to that show let's see, the first time, and I'm going to post a picture of this on my Instagram and on my TikTok. I'll do a video on TikTok about this. I have a photo of my father at Pitti Uomo. I think it was the first time I was there, 1980. So my father was 40 years old. He's almost 85 now. He was 40 years old, Pitti Uomo. I'm taking a picture of him. He's dressed in a three-piece suit with a briefcase with these super dark, he had these really dark Porsche Carrera. Remember the Porsche Carrera sunglasses where you flipped up the nose pin? It was like a nose clasp and the lenses could come out and you could change the lenses. He was one like the first to have the black anodized metal, the black frames, and he got black lenses, but he always liked it dark. So he would tell the optician guy, could you make these lenses darker? And he used to dip it in a solution and the lenses would be even darker. So they were like black lenses. I tried them on many times. I couldn't even see through those lenses. I don't know how he drove the car, but anyway. So in this picture, he's wearing those sunglasses, but he's indoors and he's talking to another guy. I don't know who it is. And behind them is this whole wall of men's suits. And this was the first Pitti Uomo that I went to. It was 1979 or 1980. And I was, how old was I? I was 10 or 11 years old at the time. So since that time, I have been every year. Now, every year for Pitti, there are two shows. There's the spring, summer, and there's the fall, winter. So now at Pitti, that it's in June, you're going to be looking at the things for the next fall, winter season. And then in January, looking at things for the next spring, summer season. I might have got that backwards, but I think I'm correct. But in any event, that's what Pitti Uomo is all about. Going to see new collections, going to see companies that you've done business with in the past, seeing their new collections, making new contacts, and even making appointments to go to somebody's factory, because most of these brands are factory brands. So you might see a brand, I mean, I could think of just any particular name that you wouldn't even know. But, okay, there's a glove brand. And basically, everybody is now on Instagram. So you could look these up. There's a glove brand. Years ago, there was no Instagram. So if somebody mentioned a name to you, you couldn't Google it or look it up. I'm going back, the 80s and the 90s. I've been in this business. I was born in this business. So I'm like an original. Now, I should also say that the Pitti Uomo, it's in a place in Florence. You could look it up, of course. It's called Fortezza de Basso. It's like it's sort of like it's nicer than like the Javits Center, which is like a real commercial expo center. This is not that. Imagine an Italian expo center, what it looks like. It's modern, it's sleek, it has design, it's like fashion. No matter what would be at Fortezza de Basso, this happens to be Pitti, but that's what it looks like. And it's multiple buildings on this large grounds with like little rocks. You walk on the rocks, almost like you're in the Hamptons, maybe. You walk on the rocks and you walk between the different, buildings, and there's different exhibits. There's even outdoor exhibits that you can go to. But the main building, the Centrale, the central building, that's where everybody wants to try and get into. It's the most difficult one to get into. And a lot of brands are there. Now, some of the big brands like Zegna and Canali and Brioni and Khitan, they don't even want to be at the Pitti show in the main show. They want to do something themselves in Florence, but somewhere outside, someplace else where they could have a real fashion runway show, or they want to do something on a yacht. Remember, it's summer. It's hot in Florence in June and July. By the way, this show used to be in July. I remember it being the end of June, beginning July, because I was a kid going with my parents, and I was going to summer camp, and I remember missing always the first week of summer camp because we had to go to Italy. We had to go because we went to Italy for business, and my parents, they took everybody, my brother, my sister, we all went. And not only that, everybody in my family had clothing stores. So my grandparents would go to Pitti, my aunt and uncle and all my cousins. We were all there at the same time in Florence. Everybody had their own shops or multiple shops. So everybody was buying for their shops during the day. You might run into your relative and say, hey, what's going on? What'd you buy? Blah, blah, blah. Who'd you see? But sometimes not. But we always met for breakfast, and we always said, okay, where we're having dinner. We had a reservation for dinner after going to the show that day. It was usually like 6:00. It ends at night. And then you go back to the hotel, you change for dinner, then you go out and you spend the whole evening together. And then it was always a couple of days at the end just to, fool around, go shopping. We used to buy out all the Fila stores. And one time my aunt was looking for keychains. Every store she went in was who's got the keychains. She bought a ton of keychains. It's like a keychain thing. And of course you got to go to the, Gucci and Ferragamo and all those stores. We used to go to all those stores too. But I'm going back a lot of years. So, but anyway, getting back to what's going on now. So Pitti is still the main show. I think this year, I don't know, it could have been the 108th show, 108th season. Let me see if I could quickly look that up for you guys. Pitti Uomo this year is what number is it this year? Let's see, does ChatGPT know this? Well, it's got to look online for what this year's Pitti. Let's see, summer 2025 edition Pitti Uomo taking place, yes, June 17 to 20, Fortezza de Basso in Florence is 108. So it's the 108th edition, featuring over 770 brands. And of course, they have a guest of honor. And the guest of honors brand, I don't know who it is. I never heard of this company. They always pick some new forward fashion, type of brand that they want to showcase. And sometimes also there are sections within Pitti that are not all Italian. They have a British section or a French section, or they invite the Japanese. There's a Japanese section, new up and coming Japanese menswear designers, whether it's tailored clothing or denim or sportswear. And there's some outlandish stuff because, in fashion, whether it's men's or women's, there's always outlandish things that who's gonna, like you see something on a runway, who's gonna buy that? Nobody's buying that. It's all about the fantasia. It's all about the fantasy of the fashion. Like if they can make something as strange and as whacked out as that looks like, imagine if they make something regular for like the regular guy, it must be good too. So that's sort of like the mentality, behind that. Anyway, that's what I think it is. So Pitti 108 going on right now in Florence. And it's for, like I said, for people that have clothing stores from all over the world. When I was going with my father, we used to see the people from Barney's, New York. They would go, they have a whole entourage because they have buyers for all different sections of the store. There's a suit buyer, and there's a sportswear buyer, and there's a pants buyer, and there's a socks buyer. Imagine you're the buyer from Barney's. All you do is socks. You got to be the expert on buying socks. You got to find different companies, different kind of socks. You want cotton socks, you want wool socks, you want cashmere socks, you want socks with patterns, you want solid colors. You got to be the expert on socks. But when it came to my stores and my stores that I had with my father, which we were in Midtown Manhattan, I mean the best spot in all of New York City, the highest rents, the best spot, 51st and Madison, 44th and Madison, 5th Avenue and 49th Street on 5th in the middle of the block, right diagonally across from the Diamond District and diagonally across from the Rockefeller Center on the same side as Saks Fifth Avenue. So you could just imagine that was 1992 to 2002, that store. I ran that store for 10 years. You could just imagine the traffic that was on the street in those years. Now New York is very different. I've been around all those neighborhoods still. The traffic is much lighter than it was years ago. I mean, it's completely changed. There's still a lot of empty stores since COVID. It's not like it was years ago. You couldn't even walk on the street. Like when you watch those old movies of New York City with so many people, their heads bobbing up and down because they're walking and they're going to work in the morning and they're getting their coffees or whatever. It's not like that anymore. Or that there's that famous scene in that movie that was not a hit, Staying Alive 2, which was the sequel to Saturday Night Fever that was directed by Sylvester Stallone. There's a street scene where John Travolta's walking one way and he bumps into a guy with like sort of long hair wrapped up in a scarf and a coat. He bumps the shoulder with the guy and the guy turns around and it's Stallone. And the street is packed with people. So it's not like that anymore. It's too bad it's not like that anymore. But anyway, those years, it really was packed. And we carried all the big name brands that you could possibly name. But all those big brands had showrooms in New York. Ermenegildo Zegna and Canali and Brioni and Kitan and Dolce & Gabbana. And we were the biggest in New York for Hugo Boss. And so many other names. I mean, you name a name, we sold it in the store. And we bought it direct. We were not buying closeouts, which is, leftover stuff. We were not buying. We were buying directly from the manufacturers. So we used to go directly to the showrooms, buy direct from them. They would ship it from their factory, wherever that may be. Mostly it was always Italy, and so we were importers of those types of luxury, high end goods. So so Pitti had. I was getting back to a particular brand of Pitti, just to give you an example, and you can look it up on Instagram. I'm sure I know they're there. There's a brand called Mazzoleni. So Mazzoleni, it might be two Z's. It's either two Z's or two L's. I'm not sure, but it might be two Z's. So you have Mazzoleni, and what does Mazzoleni do? Gloves. They only make gloves. They make for men and they make for women. But guess what? They are experts, like science experts, when it comes to the glove fitting the hand. And that's what the Italians are. They're artisans. Everything becomes an art. Even having a glove fit your hand in the right size. Now, these gloves are not extra small. I buy gloves, you go to a store, you got my size? Yeah, I'm medium. You put on a medium, that's your size. That's not this. This is sizes of gloves. What are you? Are you 8.5? Are you 9? Are you 10? 10.5? Maybe you're double X. Double X is like an 11. How do you measure your hand for a pair of gloves? Does anybody know how to measure your hand? I'll have to make a YouTube video about that, how to measure your hand for a pair of gloves. Anyway, they make handmade gloves with luxury materials. They make Napa leather, which is the traditional soft leather with the pick stitching on the fingers, the little hand stitching around the fingers with cashmere lining. If you want cashmere lining, if you want silk lining, you could pick the color of the lining. You could pick the color of the stitching around the fingers. They make ostrich, they make peccary, they make alligator. I bought gloves that were alligator on the top and the bottom was goat skin. Kid, baby goat. Right now, it's not politically correct probably to have it, but if I had a store, I would buy that today. Those sold. I only had 5 pairs. I think there was $1,700 for the pair of gloves, and they sold very well because it only comes in black. Because what other color are you going to buy in that? Because it's an expensive item, and you had to think of what customer was going to buy that. You're not going to just show everybody, oh, you like the alligator gloves? Of course not. You have a particular guy who comes in, maybe even knew somebody. I did when I bought those. I had a couple of people in mind that when they would come in, I would show it to them right away because they would like that type of thing. Now, when you're buying the gloves at Pitti, you're not going to see those gloves for like 6 months because you're placing an order for your store. And I'm getting back to the original concept of Pitti Uomo. You're buying gloves for your store. You're placing an order for your store. And the person who's working for, let's say, Mazzoleni, you're going to see their samples. Maybe they have a booth. They have a beautiful booth set up where they're showing all of their gloves. And they might have some other accessories, but this was, different styles of gloves, not just a one particular style. It's different ones. You have driving gloves that you show the knuckles with the snap by the wrist. There's gloves without fingers, but all very, very high end. And maybe gloves with a zipper closure, right? On the top instead of just pulling it on, there's a zipper. So one of the people who works for the company, they say, hello, how are you? And you talk to them, you get talking, where are you? Where you have a store? Where's your factory? You get to small talk, this and that. And they start to show you their swatch cards. And on the swatch cards, you'll see the different colors of leathers and you'll see the different types of leathers. And then you'll place an order if you like what you see. You'll say, yeah, I like that model and I want to buy it in this color. I need black and I need navy, just a few navy, and I need chocolate brown and I need a medium brown. And maybe you want to have some fun gloves for men, like a mustard yellow. That's a fun color for a man to wear. Maybe he's got an olive green coat and he wants to buy a mustard yellow glove with a brown cashmere lining. So you could do fun stuff like that just for like a window. You want to put it in the window because it attracts attention. So you put it in the window and people see, oh, it's interesting. There's yellow gloves in there. Why don't we go into that store and look around? Sure, they'll buy black, but you have a yellow. Maybe you have 3 pieces or 4 pieces. Black, you might have a dozen or more. So although this company is expensive, you don't need to buy a dozen black gloves from them. From them, you need to buy the special things. Black gloves you could find from somebody else at a lower price because not everyone's going to want to pay $700, $695, or $495 for a pair of plain black gloves. We can go to some discount store and also find black leather gloves. You know what I mean? But something that's different, then, okay, somebody might go for that price point. So you see these companies at Pitti, Mazzoleni, they don't come to America. They don't come to New York. They're not bringing all their gloves and they're not renting a booth at the Chicago Collective for $10,000 or more, whatever it might be, for 3 days. And they got to pay for their airfare and all that stuff. They're not doing that. They go to Pitti and whoever's going to be at Pitti, that's who they're going to see. That's who they're going to sell to. Stores from Russia, stores from America, stores from South America, other stores, that other people that have stores throughout Europe, England and Belgium or wherever it might be. And that's what Pitti was always about. You're going there, you're spending money. You're going there to do commerce. You're going there to see new things. Sure, you'll see people that you know and people that you'll see who you'll say, oh, you know what? I could see you in New York. I'm not going to take my time to see you here. I want to find new things because you have a showroom in New York. But so I'll wait. And when this show is over, I'll see you in New York. We'll make an appointment. We'll come up to the showroom in Manhattan and we'll see your collection there. And we did that a lot too with some of the bigger brands because the bigger brands, they had showrooms in New York City, real big office space because they could afford millions of dollars in rent because they're a big brand like Canali. Canali is a very big brand. They have a huge showroom. Or Corneliani, another one. Big showroom in New York. They've had showroom in New York for decades and decades and decades. And they have showrooms in other cities. They got showroom in London. They got showrooms other places because they're selling a lot of suits all over the world. So that's what Pitti was always about when I went for many, many, many years. It's about seeing those old connections. It's about getting new. It's really about getting new companies that you can import yourself. give great value to your customers, pay a decent price. No one says cheap, but pay a decent price and give value to your customers. You're giving great quality, and because you're importing it yourself, um, it's lower priced, or it's on par with some of the big brands, but it's different because people haven't seen it yet in New York or in the whole United States. It's very possible because years ago, I'm talking about late 1970s, when my father first found Canali, and it didn't have that name Canali. It had a different name at the time. Um, he was the only one who had it because he thought it was a beautiful garment, and he bought it and he imported it himself. And they had no showroom in America, no stores in America. He was the first one to have it. So that was in the late 70s to have Canali. And we had it for 30 years, which is 60 seasons or something like that. Spring, summer, fall, winter. That's 2 seasons. So 60 seasons uninterrupted. That's a long time to carry one particular brand. But it has a fantastic fit. Still to this day, it has a fantastic fit. And the Canali customer is usually not changing the brand. You're not going to show Zegna to the Canali customer and say, hey, how about you try a Zegna? It usually does not happen. You usually have a Canali customer and they come back and they always buy Canali. And we had so many customers who bought Canali. It was really, people used to buy 3, 4, 5, 6 at a time, but those years the prices were different. Now everything starts about 2,000. In those years, the prices started about 1,000. I remember the navy blue suit, which is 1032631. Color 31 is navy. 10326 is the fabric number for the traditional navy blue Canali suit. Of course, they make navies and other ranges of fabric, but that was the traditional go to work every day navy blue suit, New York City. That was the one that everybody wanted. And then you had the 1032711, which was the charcoal gray. These are the basics. And then you had 1032610, which was black. Color 10 was black. I still remember it like it was yesterday. And those were the suits that were $9.95. So if you bought a single-breasted suit, it was $9.95. We used to buy 2-button single-breasted, 3-button single-breasted, and then we used to buy the same suit also in double-breasted. Double-breasted cost a little bit more. So we would always buy 3 different models, all the sizes, in 3 models. So that's all of a sudden a lot of suits, right? So let's say, just for argument's sake, let's say you're buying 10 of each model. So you're buying 10 double-breasteds, 10 single-breasteds and 2-button, and 10 single-breasteds with 3-button was popular for a very long time. So it's not now, but we have to talk about 3-button when it was back then. So that was 30 suits just in black. So that already was a lot of money. What were those costing those years? I mean, maybe the wholesale price was $450 or $500 each, times 30. So you're talking already maybe close to 15,000 just on those 30 suits, right? Let me see if I'm correct with my math. Yes, yeah. So maybe 15,000 just on those 30 suits, but you have to buy a lot more than that. You have to spend a couple of $100,000 or $250 on your Canali purchase because it's one of your bigger purchases. So a company like Canali, they really didn't go to Pitti because they were so well known. They would have a different event outside of Pitti, somewhere in Florence, or even they wouldn't do anything in Florence at all. People would go to Pitti and then go see Canali in the showroom in Milan, which a lot of people also did. But we went to see them in New York because they had a big showroom there. So, that's what Pitti was always about, buying new things, finding new vendors, and you're doing business for your store. Now, since the advent of the internet, which is already a long time, and social media apps like Instagram and TikTok is not that long, but Instagram is much longer, what happened to Pitti? If you hashtag Pitti Uomo, you're going to see people just mulling around outside that central building, like I mentioned in Fortezza de Basso, that main building, Centrale. People just mulling around there. And what are they doing? They don't have stores. They're not buying anything there. They're just mulling around to show off how poorly, I'm going to say poorly, I'll get some flack for it, how terribly they're not dressed mainstream. They want to go in a yellow double-breasted suit with if it's winter, in a coat over their shoulders with a fedora with a big feather sticking out. They want to be flashy and they want to show way over the top men's fashion. Why? Because there are people taking pictures there right in the front of that building, and you want to get maybe on someone else's social media feed. You want to get on a magazine's social media feed, or you want to get on an influencer's media feed, or maybe there's an influencer that you could get to take a picture with. So it all became about pictures. Even yesterday, when I was looking at TikTok and looking at Instagram, I saw people that I don't know them personally, but I've interacted with them on, on Instagram mostly or on TikTok that are newly in the men's clothing business, new people, think that they're selling something fantastic, custom made or whatever it is, made in China, not even made in Italy. They're going to Pitti only because they have a lot of followers, possibly on these platforms, and maybe they get invited. I don't know. And they go there just to make videos, go to an event, go to a party at a bar, look around, see what's going on new in the fashion, and then they come home and they talk about it ad nauseum. I was in Pitti, and then I wrote this article, and then I saw this person who I never saw before from this company, and they let me try on the jacket, but I had to put it back. But anyway, they're not buying anything. They're not having any commerce. They're not buying anything for any store. And that's really terrible, I think, because, over the years, Pitti is to do commerce. That's what it is. These companies are factories. They need to keep people working. They need to keep pumping out merchandise, and they need to keep innovating for the artists that they are when it comes to high-end luxury menswear. And for people just to walk around and waste their time and say, "Oh, what is this made out of? Oh, this is linen and silk, and oh, this is linen and cotton, and what's the percentage of the two? Oh, and how do you make your thing? Is it canvas or not canvas, or how could it be ordered?" But they're not telling them, okay, get out your book. Like I used to go and I used to see something I like. I used to say, okay, get out your book. What does that mean? They take out the order book. I want to order something, right? I'm there to do business. I need clothing for my store. So I take out your book. Where's your store? New York City. What's the address? What's your tax ID number? Oh, can you put my label in there? Sure, we could put your label in there. Okay. Usually I used to bring my labels to Italy. So I used to bring them in my luggage. Store labels, whether it's a tie was a smaller label, if for a suit was a larger label with my company name, my logo, whatever it was. And I used to carry them with me. And if I placed an order for, I don't know, 50 suits from a new company, I used to give them like 60 labels in case they make a mistake. They have a few extra. And they would have it. And after Pitti was over, they went back to their factory where they were and they had my label. So that when they did the production, they were sewing my label in, right away at that moment. And ties were the same thing. I used to have ties on a roll. Instead of individual labels, I used to have them on a roll so I can carry many, many more. Because ties, you're buying a lot more, usually buying 4 of a tie. And if there's a lot of nice ties, you could easily buy 150 ties in a minute. So instead of counting out all the individual labels, they were all attached on a roll. You would count out 10, and then the length of that 10, you would double back and count out the next length 10, the next length 10, the next length 10. You weren't counting one by one by one, so it made it much quicker. And then you would cut it from the whole roll, and you would give them those labels. So and there was a lot of things that we used to do, and it was a lot of fun going with family. My grandfather, my grandmother they were buying for their stores. My father was buying for his stores, and my uncle was buying for his stores. Then I had another uncle who was in the shoe business. He didn't really go to Pitti. He went to the shoe show that used to be in Bologna, and then it was MyCam, which is now still in Milan. MyCam is the big shoe show, which is a great shoe show. And then you could find things which are very well priced, and you could sell them at a good price and still make money. And you're giving your customer a lot of value. So, I sort of get upset when I see all these people just, mulling around in all these crazy wild outfits. And some of them don't have any fashion sense because they don't understand the fashion. They just don't. They just think they go to Italy and they're at Pitti and they're doing something that's just so fantastic. I mean, it's beautiful to go to Italy and go to Pitti, no question. It's beautiful to go there. But the whole crux of the whole thing is to place some orders and do some business. And I really haven't spoken to any of the manufacturers. I'm going to ask now after the show ends lately, what do you think about all the, I did speak to a couple of people. What do you think about what's going on in the front of the main building with the pictures? And a lot of them don't like it, because they know they're not getting any business from that. It has nothing to do with buying and selling any product at all. I mean, if some big influencer has hundreds of thousands of followers and that person is walking around and sees their sweater line and they take some photos of it and they put it on their Instagram, okay, maybe they get a little action from that. I don't know. I don't know what influencer has stores who want to buy merchandise wholesale on an influencer account. I don't really think that works out. I mean, if an influencer would show a product, maybe a consumer might want to buy it. But it, Pitti is not consumers. Pitti is business. It's B2B. It's business to business. That's what it is. It's a trade show. It's the biggest menswear trade show in the world, and that's what it is. So I'm not sure how even an influencer could help that. And I know some of them that do go around to the booths. I know them from Instagram, and they walk around, and that's all they do is they look. Oh, I like this collection, or look at this collection, and I like that collection. But who cares what you like? You're not even in the clothing business. What's the difference? What you say that you like. It doesn't make any. It doesn't really make any sense to me. Does it make any sense to you? I don't know if it makes any sense to you either. So that's what that's really what Pitti is. And there was somebody on the other day I crossed over on one of my feeds. They were trying to explain what Pitti was, and they really missed the what's the word I'm looking for? Not really missed the crux of it. They really missed the whatever. They really missed the meaning of really, and meaning is really not a good word either. They really missed the essence. That's the word. They really missed the essence of what Pitti Uomo means to the Italian fashion market and what it means to export that kind of clothing outside of Italy. Because Italy, what do they really have? They have tourism, and they have clothing, and they have cars. They have Ferrari, Maserati, they have Fiat, Alfa Romeo. They export a lot of cars, and the high-end cars. And also they have, who doesn't like clothing made in Italy? People in the United States pay a premium for the Made in Italy label. And that's something else. The Made in Italy label with all this stuff going on TikTok. Oh, it's all made in China, all the Italian brands and Louis Vuitton and Hermes, it's all made, and none of it is made in China. It's all ridiculous. It's all made where it's supposed to be made. Hermes is made in France, although they do have a factory in Texas. And a lot of the big Italian brands have factories different places, but Canali is made in Italy. Zegna is made in Italy. They also have a factory in Switzerland. They have another one in Mexico, but it depends which line you're buying. They have the Zegna line, which used to be the Ermenegildo Zegna, the main one, the expensive one. That's made in Italy or Switzerland. And then you have the Z Zegna, which is the slightly lower end. I mean, lower end is $1,500, I think. Lower end, and that's made in Mexico because they have a factory in Mexico. So, but the ones that are made only in Italy, the smaller ones, Italy has very strict laws about garments made in Italy, the cut, make, and the make and the trim pieces. In other words, the buttons and the ribbons and the threads. To use the Made in Italy label, all that stuff has to be made in Italy. They're not buying tons of buttons from China and linings from China and fabric from China and then putting the suit together in Italy. They're not doing that. I've been to those factories. I was in the Canali factory. I was in the Conigliani factory. I was in those factories. And there's 900, 1,000 people working, working. And I could take some stories about going to those factories I have. Very fun stories over the years. But that's what it's about. Going there, making networking, of course, seeing new vendors, and buying and spending money there. So these factories can keep going, and you can get beautiful, beautiful items for your clothing store. And it's not unfortunate, but it's just part of the way the business works. Is that when you're ordering, it's made to order, so they're making it for your store. You're not just placing an order and they say, oh yeah, we have it in stock in the factory and we're going to ship it to you next week. That's not how it works. Excuse me. Now, sometimes what we try to do is in the off season, which is very important. That's why you really have to go. It's nice to do business on the internet and send emails back and forth and talk on WhatsApp and do FaceTime and do, WhatsApp with the camera and see the people that way. All that works up to a point. But when you take the effort to actually go and see these people where they live, whether it's in their offices or in their factories, and you make that effort, they really like that. They really say, hey, this is a real person with a real business. They're coming all the way here. They're taking the time. They're spending money, hotel, food, airfare to come and see us. This is a real customer of ours, and we want to keep in touch with them in New York because we don't know, they may expand and they might buy much, much more from us. So we want to make sure that, we make the right product when they order it. We we make the right fabric for them. We make the right colors and patterns that they picked. Sometimes things you order it and you don't get it. That happened. That's another story. That happens too. Happened to me once. You place an order, a nice bunch of stuff, and you're waiting for it to come for your store. And maybe you're counting on it to come for your store because you didn't buy anything similar from anybody else because you placed the order with these people. And then what happens? Time goes by. You don't get it. The cold weather's coming. Let's just say it's a coat or some outerwear or something. And it's getting cold. You don't have it. You're losing sales. You'd be selling it if you had it. And you send them an email. Or you call them on the phone. What happened? I didn't get it. And they go, oh, we had a production problem. We couldn't get the fabric, blah, blah, blah. And they don't tell you. And guess what? In the end of the day, you didn't get anything, which is very bad. So that's why when you show up and you make that effort, and this goes for any business, by the way. I mean, this is not necessarily a podcast about, selling you a course about what to do in your business, but it's just a life business lesson that you got to show your face. You have to show up face to face. Not everything can be on the phone. Not everything can be on FaceTime. Not everything can be on an email or a text message. You got to say, hey, I'm here right in front of you. Let's do business together. Let's make a deal. I'll give you an offer. What are you selling? What's it made out of? Give me a better price. Let's say you buy a lot of stuff. Give me a better price. So you negotiate if they do that. Some people don't. Some people do. But anyway, that's what's very important is to show your face. That's the idea. Show your face. So you go to those factories and you make sure that, they're going to make this stuff for you. And then they're happy to do it. And then you have a nice relationship, over many, many years, which I had for many years with a lot of companies. And my father had for many years. And my grandfather had for many, many years. And my grandfather, I didn't know him, but he didn't go to Europe to buy clothing. His clothing was all bought here in the States. My grandfather went to Europe in 1958. And he went all over. He went to Paris and Spain, and he went to Italy, and he went to even South America. He went to Argentina, and he went to North Africa. He went to Morocco. I'm talking about the 50s and the 60s and the 70s when nobody was really going to these places. Back then you would say, oh, you're going to Europe? It was like nobody was going to Europe. I mean, who's going to Europe? Now people get on a plane. It's nothing to go to Italy or go, hey, you want to go to Paris? Yeah, we'll go for the weekend. We'll go to Paris. People go for the weekend to Paris. They put it on their credit card. They go, they come back. But those years, people didn't go. It was like, wow, you're going to Europe. That's unbelievable. And they were away for a while. You couldn't call them on the phone. By the way, I remember when you wanted to call the States from a hotel, there was no cell phone. You had to go down to the lobby, and they had a special telephone area, which was actually in the basement of this. This is the Excelsior Hotel in Florence, which is one of the premier hotels. By the way, the St. Regis Hotel, which is newer, is across the street from the Excelsior. And the name of the place, of the street it's on, is Via Agnasanti, which is like a square. So the Excelsior is on one side, the St. Regis is on the other side. And we always stayed in the Excelsior. Now it's called the Westin Excelsior because the, Westin, which is now I think Marriott, they bought all those hotels. So now they have the Westin name on it. But if you want to go to Italy, you stay at the Excelsior. That is the old world. I don't like those hotels that are like brass and glass and modern. And when I go to Europe, I want to stay in like a more old world charm, old European type of hotel. I don't like the little boutique-y, modern type of hotels. I don't see Europe for that. When I go to Paris, you stay at the Le Bristol in Paris is beautiful. Nice. One of that has the famous wood and glass elevator in the center. But anyway, we always stayed at the Excelsior, and it used to be the Grand Hotel across the street until they changed it to the St. Regis, going back a lot of years. And so I was there with my my grandparents. And we all stayed in that hotel. So we have very good memories in that hotel. So I could tell you, in one time in 1980, the Italians were in the World Cup. And it was the championship game. So I guess they're gonna play this game, and if they win the World Cup, right? So it was getting to be like dinner time, and it was in the summer, and it was getting to be dinner time, and we went out to this restaurant, and I remember the name of the restaurant even. It was called what the hell was it? Now I just forgot the name of the restaurant. It was called, I think it was called La Loggia was the name of the restaurant. And it's about 20 minutes. It's in Florence, but it's up on a big hilltop with outdoor seating, indoor seating. And you could really see the Duomo. You could see everything from there. And it's still in business, by the way. I looked it up a couple of months ago. It still is in business. Anyway, we go there, we get a table. It's probably, I don't know, it's probably, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. It could have been 10 or 12 of us. And no waiters. We want to order the food. There's nobody, no waiters. You can't get any Pellegrino. You can't get any bottled water, acqua di pana. You can't get the bottled water. You can't get any bread and olive oil. That's what I really wanted, was the bread and the olive oil. I can't get any bread and olive oil. And why? Where is everybody? They're all in the kitchen watching this little TV, like an 8-inch TV, and they're watching the game. Eventually, we got our food. We went back to the hotel, and wouldn't you know it? They won the World Cup. Italy won the World Cup. And after they won, the streets were jam packed with people. You couldn't walk in the street. You couldn't drive anywhere. People honking their horns. And I have a photograph. I got to find it, but I have one of myself and my grandfather, and I think my brother or my sister. And my grandfather asked someone who was walking by who had a giant Italian flag if he could hold it for the photo. And he's holding this huge Italian flag, like almost bigger than his whole body. And he was waving it, and we all took a picture with the big Italian flag. And that was when Paolo Rossi, I don't know if he's alive anymore, Paolo Rossi, he was the big star of the game, that night. So I remember that very vividly. That night, people were going in and out of the hotel. It was just craziness what was going on. So that's my good memories of the Pitti Uomo fashion show. I didn't go this year. I went last to Pitti Uomo. It's been a little while since I went because I don't have any storefronts. You need to go there. You need a storefront. Why am I going to go there, walk around for someone to take my picture or talk to people that I'm not buying anything from right now? It's really just a big waste of time. I don't have to be on Instagram showing that I'm at Pitti walking around, looking at stuff. If I would go, I would post on Instagram showing what I'm buying, what things cost, what we're going to maybe sell them for. Let some people on Instagram pick out the color or the fashion or the models or the designs. That's a fun thing to do. But there were a lot of nice companies that I met over the years. A lot of them are still in business. A lot of them still go to Pitti. And so that's the big show, and it's going on right now. So if you look on Instagram, maybe on TikTok too, hashtag Pitti Uomo, and that's spelled UOMO. Pitti Uomo. You'll see photos and videos from Florence yesterday, today, tomorrow at Pitti, and you'll see exactly what's going on there, and you'll get the idea of what I mean, or how people are like walking around, standing in front of a wall, getting their photo taken, like they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars for their menswear clothing store or chain of stores that they have from wherever they live. And none of those people are. I mean, sure, there are people that are doing real business, but not those people standing around waiting to get their photo taken. Those people are 100% not. That's for sure. You could take that to the bank. So I guess that's it for now. So I hope you like this new version of the podcast. I'll come on again. I like this format, just me talking. We'll talk about some other things about men's clothing and men's fashion. Can't get into everything in one episode, of course, but I like to talk about the individual brands. We'll get into the brands that I sold. I was the largest for Versace in New York, the largest for Hugo Boss in New York. Versace was big, and so was Boss in the late 80s and all through the 1990s. Hugo Boss was probably the biggest brand that there was. Versace was also in the mid 90s, but his look was very, very different. It was very outlandish. It was very flashy, and there were people who loved it. All the Russians, they loved Versace, in New York. And they used to come in and buy up those shirts, those crazy shirts for $1,500 with all the wild patterns, like the tiger pattern, the leopard pattern with the big leopard on the back. And it was cool for the time. I still see people wearing it now here and there on Instagram, but I don't really see it. Would I wear it now? No. Did I wear it then? I don't even think I wore it then. I wore things that said Versace, like a t-shirt that said Versace on it, and I had Versace jeans. Those were nice jeans. I had like red and yellow, and I had white, and I had navy and black, all the different colors. But I don't really see it now. I think now things are much more understated. And so I hope you enjoy this format. I'd love to get some comments. I'm not sure how you're going to comment on a podcast. That's not easy to do because you're really just listening to it on all the podcast platforms, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify. This will be on all of those. And hope you enjoyed this. And if you do get a message to me, which you can through my website, by the way, my website, suitcafe.com, we're doing a big overhaul this for half of the summer. We're going to redesign the whole thing from scratch. We hadn't done it since 2021. So it's time for a redo. So please go onto the website, suitcafe.com, and you could just put your email address in there and you'll be notified when the new site goes live. So you'll be able to see all the new products. We're going to have a lot of new things because although I'm making a lot of custom now, which is also made in Italy, the custom suits and custom shirts, a lot of beautiful things custom, which we'll still be offering there on the website. I'm starting to carry inventory in some beautiful things. We have beautiful scarves in 100% cashmere and woolen cashmere. Those are coming from London. And they'll be coming October time, when it starts to get a little cool, we'll have them. And beautiful ties that are coming also from England. I just found them, and they're just beautifully made and beautiful patterns and beautiful colors, so I bought. See, that's what I do. Some people go in, like at Pitti, they go into a booth, and they say, oh, let me look at your stuff. And they take an hour, and they're writing notes. This thing and that thing, and I don't know what they're writing, so many notes. And then maybe they might come back and buy, or maybe they'll call them or send them an email in the future. Why go and take all the notes? If you like it and you know your store and you know your customer, sit down there, place the order and buy it and be done and move on to the next thing. Anyway, that's my philosophy. So thank you all for listening. I appreciate it very much. I hope you subscribe to this podcast. I'd love you to get the next episode because I think this format could be really great. Of course, I'd love to have new guests on the podcast. I will find some more interesting guests. Some of the guests I've had in the past, which if you've seen any of you could see some of my podcasts because some of them were on Zoom and then we put that video on YouTube. The YouTube channel is also at Suit Cafe. But if you just want to listen, you have all the, podcast platforms, including YouTube. All the podcasts are on YouTube as well. But guests are very interesting. I've had some interesting guests that I picked out before they really exploded on Instagram. One is Massimo Peroni. Some of you may know him. He's the man who does the ristretto on the espresso every morning. He says, you're here in the morning for the ristretto. Very nice guy. He's in Belgium, has a clothing store, sells custom made in Belgium, but he's Italian, but he lives in Belgium. A very interesting history of menswear. There's another interesting channel. Remember, it's All Been Done Before, so they're not all clothing. There's another interesting gentleman. His name is Boot, and he lives in El Paso, Texas. And what he does is that he makes handmade electric guitars. And how does he make those guitars? What kind of wood does he use? He uses reclaimed wood from a piano. So if somebody wants to throw away the piano, he gets the piano, and he takes it apart and he uses the wood from the piano for his amazing electric guitars. So there's a podcast with him as the guest also, talking about his business. And there's another interesting guy who became very big in the car industry. He doesn't sell cars, but he's a car guy. And he has a company called PCNY. And his name is Wayne Schneider, and he's from New York also. I had a very good podcast with him, and he blew up to hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram. He does these rallies for charity. He also feeds the homeless every Wednesday night in New York City, somewhere near Madison Square Garden. And he gets all these gourmet restaurants in Manhattan to donate the food, and they bring it out there. And you don't have to be homeless. He says anybody who needs a meal can come by and eat, because he realizes there are people out there who just fall on hard times. They're not homeless, but they're falling on hard times. They might need a little extra help. And the mayor of New York City found out about it, and the mayor went down there and was helping, put plates together for people. Very interesting. And he came very friendly with a big fashion designer. I don't know if we spoke about it on the podcast because it's been a couple of years, but he became very friendly with Philip Plein. Philip Plein is a very well-known big German designer, has stores all over the world. So you might want to check that one out too. And then you have the first podcast in the whole series, which is me on a business radio show here in the tri-state area. That's New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. And somebody interviewed me about my family history and my business history. So if you want to learn more about me and about my family business and about my business history in men's clothing, listen to that very, very first podcast. I forgot the gentleman who had this radio show, but he was a very nice guy. And that's it. So thanks for listening. I appreciate it. And of course, like I say at the end of all of my YouTube videos, I say I will see you all, but I'm not seeing you here. But anyway, catch you all again when I'm back at it. Take it easy.